This video is not intended for children.
Hello everyone, our topic this week was requested by all of these lovely people. We'll be going over War from the Darksiders franchise. Spoilers for most of the Darksiders franchise.
Okay, so before we go any further, there are going to be a lot of references to other Darksiders materials we've covered in detail previously. The Council, Abaddon, other Horsemen, the Grand Abominations, etc. There's a limit on how many videos we can link to in a single video, so we're just going to link our Darksiders Lore playlist now, which you can grab with the gray eye or in the description below. If we mention something you're not familiar with, we've done a lot of Darksiders videos. There's probably something on it in that playlist somewhere. Now, War is one of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and he is the protagonist of the very first Darksiders game, the one who kicked this whole thing off. The Horsemen are the enforcers of the Charred Council, a mystical governing body that seeks to maintain the cosmic balance throughout creation. When someone or something steps out of line, the Horsemen are the hammer the Council brings down on the offenders. War is the youngest of the Horsemen, and like his brothers and sister, is an incredibly powerful warrior, owing to his natural combat prowess as well as mystical empowerments granted to him by the Council.
The Horsemen are Nephilim, created by the ancient demon Lilith by mixing the essence of angels and demons together to form a new race. The rest of the species has been wiped out, more on that in a moment, but if their history and the evidence shown by the Horsemen are any indication, they were all powerful warriors, and War is no exception. Each of the Horsemen has a sort of niche, with Fury being the most magically gifted, Death being the most powerful overall, and Strife being a largely unknown quantity at this point, though he seems agile and is the only Horseman to favor ranged weaponry. For his part, War is the tank. Based upon gameplay in both puzzle-solving and combat situations, he is inferred to be the most physically powerful member of the Horsemen, physically overpowering foes and routinely performing feats of strength, such as hurling cars and statues that his fellow Horsemen seldom, if ever, match. He's also the most heavily armored, tanking hits and shrugging off damage with comparative ease. Indeed, in Darksiders Genesis, where you can play as both Strife and War, Strife is a ranged DPS archetype, while War is a melee tank character. There are inferences to Death being similarly or perhaps even more tanky, but War is the most obvious damage sponge of the two, and even if Death beats him out in this ability to take damage, War is still the most durable of the rest of the Horsemen by a wide margin. Like the rest of the Horsemen, War has a variety of magical abilities at his disposal, able to conjure mystical armor for even greater defense, fire off bolts of energy, and cause fields of blades to erupt from the earth around him to impale his foes. His primary armament, however, is a massive two-handed sword, the Chaos Eater. As long as War is tall and almost as wide as he is, which is said to feed on the chaos of battle and carnage in which it is used, and even fuels War's battle rage, dangerously so if he's not careful. It's worth noting that the physical dimensions of the Horsemen have never been solidly determined, but we know that they're larger than humans, with our personal estimates placing the Horsemen at an average of 8 feet tall or so. Throughout his games, War also acquires a variety of toys that are useful in both combat and for puzzle solving.
The most powerful weapon at War's disposal, however, is his super form. We did a video specifically on the superforms before, where we were forced to speculate on the origins of the superforms, but the developers have since confirmed that the super modes are an empowerment granted by the Charred Council, each unique to the Horseman in question. In War's case, he can assume the Chaos form. He grows to nearly twice his normal size, assuming the form of a hulking, quasi-demonic-looking winged creature either wreathed in or entirely made of flames, and wielding a massive flaming falchion. Despite the wings, he's never been shown to fly. To be fair, they're tiny, though he can charge with great speed. In this form, War becomes completely immune to all forms of damage, and his physical power increases dramatically. Additionally, while in both of his games he can usually only assume this form for brief periods of time, the tutorial section of Darksiders 1 allows War to stay in Chaos form almost indefinitely, inferring that something, potentially the Council, can grant him the ability to use Chaos form without limitations. As a person, War is a hardened and disciplined warrior, dedicated to the preservation of the balance and willing to do whatever is necessary, kill whatever is necessary, to ensure that the status quo is maintained. He is considered to be the most honorable of the Horsemen. His word is his bond. He prefers a straight fight and prefers not to do battle with the weak or defenseless, though he's more than capable of taking advantage of a situation for his own benefit if he believes doing so is prudent, with Death remarking at one point that War has a better tactical mind than he does. If you can get past that armored exterior though, you will also find a true friend in War. He is fiercely loyal to his brothers and sister Horsemen, having their back almost without question despite not always agreeing and getting along, as well as genuinely enjoying the company of his family when time and circumstance allow.
So, War's story begins untold eons ago with the rest of the Horsemen. The Nephilim, the Horsemen included, had led a campaign of carnage and destruction across numerous worlds, slaughtering everyone and everything in their path, supposedly looking for a home to call their own. After a while, war, fury, death, and strife grew tired of the endless slaughter, fearing that their people threatened to endanger the balance of creation itself. To that end, they sought out the Council. In exchange for becoming enforcers of the Council's will, they were granted incredible power. The realm of Eden had been declared the sovereign soil of mankind. However, the Nephilim had decided that they wanted Eden for themselves, so they raided the world. As such, the Horsemen's first task was to purge their entire race from existence. Before that, though, they were sent to gain their steeds, the Phantom Horses, mystical, powerful mounts that can seemingly teleport, summoned and dismissed at the Horseman's will. War's steed is named Ruin, and, as Phantom Horses are influenced by the rider who tames them, has assumed the form of a massive horse, reminiscent of a Clydesdale, with runes inscribed in his flesh and flames spitting from his hooves. In the comic where we learn of the Horsemen's acquisition of their mounts, it's noted as an aside that War also evidently fought and brought to their knees the entirety of the legions of Anubis, presumably as in the god Anubis. It's worth noting that the comics and the book are of questionable canonicity, with the games being the primary canon and anything that conflicts with them from extended media being considered non-canon. However, nothing has ever broached this subject, so War beat the armies of Anubis single-handedly, apparently? That's cool.
Once they had their mighty steeds, the Horsemen rode. Assisted by a legion of angels, the 4 horsemen spearheaded an assault on the rest of the Nephilim. The battle took place on Eden itself and was so fierce that the planet was ruined, seemingly beyond repair, with the young race of humanity being moved to Earth in the aftermath. To our knowledge, every single Nephilim, besides the Horsemen, perished in that battle, though the original Nephilim, Absalom, would live to battle death in his game millennia later. With their race wiped out at their own hands, the Horsemen's positions were secured, and in the coming eons, the cosmos would learn that when they crossed the Council, the dreaded Horsemen would soon be on their doorstep. An unknown amount of time later, War succumbed to the influence of Chaos Eater and went on a slaughtering rampage. Consumed by battle lust, he killed his way through at least one army, ignoring his duties and the Council's call until they sent the other 3 horsemen to rein him in. War engaged all 3 of the other horsemen in battle, fighting off fury and strife before impaling death with Chaos Eater, who did not care. Left vulnerable by this strike, however, Fury entangled War with her whip, and Death cut War's left arm off. That giant gauntlet-looking contraption that War is always shown wearing on his left arm is actually some form of prosthetic. After gaining the prosthetic arm, War is often shown using it as both a shield and battering ram. Whether this is because the prosthetic grants him increased strength with that arm, or simply because it is comparably expendable, he can evidently get a new prosthetic but not regrow the arm after all, is unknown.
The next major series of events in War's life take place during the Darksiders Genesis game. The inferences made by this game suggest that it, and therefore all of the events prior to Genesis, occurred relatively recently after the destruction of the Nephilim at Eden, as the psychological and emotional wounds from that battle are addressed by War and Strife, the protagonists for the game, numerous times throughout the course of the game. Though in all fairness, what counts as recent is a fairly subjective concept when dealing with creatures that are seemingly ageless, such as the Nephilim and the Council. During the course of Genesis, the Council catches wind that Lucifer, Lord of the Demons, has hatched some kind of plot against humanity. As the Council believes humans to be integral to the eventual balance of creation, War and Strife are dispatched to hunt down Lucifer and discover/foil his plans. Their first stop is to visit Samael, an extremely powerful demon referenced in a few places as being second only to Lucifer himself, and recurring frenemy throughout the series, as the Council believes him to be involved in Lucifer's schemes. For the first of many times throughout the series, the Horsemen actually make a tenuous alliance with Samael rather than battling with him, as they discover he is one of, possibly the only, major demon lord who has not allied himself with Lucifer in his plan, as Sammy's just smart enough to know what will piss the Council off and stays far away from that crap.
Working together with Samael and Vulgrim, a demon merchant who every single one of the Horsemen has worked with in each of the Darksiders games, War and Strife slowly uncover Lucifer's plot, tracking down and killing his allied demon lords along the way. while bonding as brothers, opening up to each other about the strange position they're in, being among the only survivors of their race, and being the reason the rest of the Nephilim are dead, and what that means for their pledged eternity of servitude to the Council. Mostly they trek through hell, but to their surprise, their quest also takes them to Eden, which is supposed to have been blocked off and all but inaccessible after the Nephilim massacre. While there, old wounds are opened as they battle demons, corrupted angels, and necromantically revived Nephilim. By the end of the game, it is revealed that Lucifer had conspired with Lilith in order to corrupt humanity as she was angry with the Council for destroying her creations, the Nephilim. Together they formed the Animus, some kind of artifact that would infect humanity with such emotions as fear, hatred, and lust, possibly giving birth to the 7 deadly sins seen in DS3, but we have absolutely no proof of this. In order to power such a potent device, Lucifer struck a deal with several demon lords. He would grant them incredible power, making them virtually undefeatable, and in exchange, they would owe him their souls upon their death. These were the very same demon lords that War and Strife had spent the game killing. Samael admitted he'd known this from the start, but since the Council's orders were to slay all those involved, and the demons in question were Sammy's rivals, he didn't see the harm in omitting that fact. Ultimately, Lucifer released the Animus upon humanity, infecting them with negativity and violence that, by inference of the act, was alien to humans prior to this event, which raises questions regarding humanity's existence as established as being creatures of both good and evil in the other games, but whatever. War and Strife culled the infected humans they encountered, but since the humanity of Darksiders is supposed to be real-world humanity, we all know that they didn't stop the infection from spreading. Afterwards, the Council forced a truce between heaven and hell, declaring that humanity would remain untouched until such time as they were ready to contend on equal footing with heaven and hell. As part of that enforcement, they created the 7 Seals of the Apocalypse, which would herald the end war between heaven, hell, and earth. Each seal had a purpose, and overall, when broken, they tolled the bell, letting all the factions know that the time had come. The last seal, the 7th seal, summoned the Horseman, no matter where they were, or even if they had died. They and their horses would be brought, living and able, to Earth for the final conflict.
War's next major adventure takes place during the events of the Abomination Vault novel. During the events of the book, the Council received word that Abaddon, an angelic general who didn't believe demons could be trusted to keep the peace, he also bore witness to the creation of the Truce and the 7 Seals, and he, War and Strife, had some brief dealings in Genesis, had created a mystical nuke, the Sacrament Bomb, an explosive with an enormous radius that would only harm demons. He of course claimed it was a deterrent, a final answer, but the Council saw it as a breach of their truce and thus sent War to dispose of the weapon and any who tried to stop him, with explicit instructions to make his work loud and noticeable. The Council wanted to create a warning for those who dared break their truce again. War rode straight through the front gate of the White City, the Angels' capital, openly declaring he was on official Council business, though not saying what that business was. When he found the fortified structure housing the nuke, he picked up a statue and, riding Ruin, used it as a battering ram to hammer open the doors, proceeding to fight his way through the entire installation, killing every angel in his path, before finding the Sacrament Bomb at last, guarded by a young angelic squire, Uriel. She bravely stood in his way, but he simply knocked her out and went about his business, having no interest in fighting someone who was little more than a child. War was a veteran with hundreds, if not thousands, of years of experience under his belt by this point. Afterward, he simply detonated the bomb, since it was in the center of a city of angels, and thus was a danger to no one. Though since Nephilim are part demon, we believe this choice was foolish, and he is incredibly lucky the bomb was so very finely tuned, as opposed no greater danger to him than to the angels.
Afterward, the meat of the story begins. Death and the Council had gotten wind of someone looking to find and utilize the Grand Abominations, a series of WMDs created by the Nephilim early in their campaign of slaughter and either destroyed or locked away by Death after the Nephilim's destruction. Death, as the eldest of the Horsemen and the originator of the idea for the Abominations' creation, filled the Council and his fellow Horsemen in on the generalities of the history and capabilities of the Grand Abominations, which he had kept as a closely guarded secret prior to this moment, while assuring them that all those Death had been able to account for had been locked away in a place only he knew about. The Council then sent the 4 of them out to track down those responsible for trying to use the Abominations, with Death ordering everyone else to stay behind while he handled that business alone. War was the only member of the Horsemen to disobey Death's orders, and the 2 of them tracked their foes across creation. Eventually, they discovered that the culprits were a disgraced angel and a renegade maker, basically a 10-foot-tall fantasy dwarf. They traveled from the White City to the depths of Hell in search of answers, with Death meeting their creator, Lilith, alone, despite War's protests, for the final hint that let them track the rogue duo down. The Horsemen engaged them in battle in the Maker's lab, but were interrupted by mercenary demons sent in by a third party to disrupt events.
Afterward, Death led War to the world where the Grand Abominations were forged. In order to activate the Abominations, the blood of the race native to that world was required. Their species had been converted into the weapons by the Nephilim, so any of their blood left in the cosmos could only be found there. On the planet, the two engaged in a massive battle with the Maker's army of golems and those same demons from earlier, with War truly cutting loose for one of the only times throughout the series, tearing into the golems and demons arrayed against them. War is constantly referenced in lore and background materials as needing to keep his battle lust in check, fueled in some part by Chaos Eater, but is always shown in-game to be very controlled, only breaking into rage for a moment or two here and there. After the battle, Death, with the help of the Archangel Azrael, who, along with the Legion of Angels, was assisting the two Horsemen, magically collected all of the blood left on the planet and created a number of decoy teams set to try and escape the planet. Their enemies' numbers were huge, and they had the use of 2 fully functioning Grand Abominations to aid them. Death took the real blood canister, though told everyone, including War, that War had the real canister and then leaked that information to the enemy, while Death slipped away and had it destroyed. War died on his decoy run, with Death using shenanigans involving Chaos Eater and Necromancy to bring War back to life. War was ashamed of his failure, and Death was so ashamed for having lied about the situation that he lied again and told War that he'd gotten the real canister back after War had lost it, so no harm, no foul. The book culminates in a final battle at the secret entrance to the titular Abomination Vault. Through a combination of preparation, subterfuge, and skill, Death, War, and Azrael defeated the renegade duo, killing the Angel, taking the Maker prisoner, and confiscating or destroying all of the Grand Abominations that the duo had acquired.
Thousands of years later, at some point roughly equivalent to the modern day, Abaddon, that angel general, conspired with Azrael and a skilled maker named Ulthane in a plan to destroy the legions of Hell. They would destroy 6 of the 7 seals, summoning everyone but the Horsemen to Earth. Abaddon's legions would be waiting, and they would destroy Hell's leaders with a surprise attack. Then, Ulthane would reforge the 6 broken seals, erasing all physical evidence of their crime. Unsurprisingly, the whole thing went sideways. The demons caught wind of their plan, and were thus prepared for Abaddon's attack. What's more, they started Armageddon, so the Council heard about it. Duh! However, with the seals reforged, they had no proof, so the Council sent War to the Battle of Armageddon, before stripping him of his power at a critical moment, killing War for a second time, only to be brought back by the Council and accused of starting the apocalypse early. They knew if War was accused of the crime, he'd seek to clear his name, hopefully eventually leading to the proof the Council needed to motivate the Horsemen, and killing the culprits along the way. As he was being judged, the Council sent Fury on her mission, leading to the events of Darksiders 3, with War trying vainly to warn her that someone or something was conspiring against the Horsemen, since obviously he knew he wasn't guilty of starting the apocalypse early. After suffering about 100 years of imprisonment, the Council allowed War a chance to try and clear his name, assigning him a watcher to keep him on a leash as he was now an untrusted asset, and also to kill War assuming he succeeded, as War was right and the Council had at this point decided they wanted to dispose of the Horsemen.
War starts out severely weakened, stripped of most of his power. Arriving on Earth, he finds that the Destroyer, the leader of Hell's armies on Earth, makes his lair in the Black Tower, a floating fortress with few access points for those who can't fly, like War. War once again makes a tenuous alliance with Samael, who'd been imprisoned for opposing the Destroyer, with Samael promising to get War to the tower if he kills the Destroyer's generals, claiming their life force mystically protected the Black Tower, when in actuality they held portions of Samael's power, and thus killing them and returning their hearts to Samael allowed him to regain his full power. Despite once again dealing with treacherous half-truths, the arrangement was mutually beneficial, with War regaining all of his former power and then some by the time he was able to get to the tower with the help of a fully empowered Samael. Which is when all the pieces start to click. Finding Azrael in the tower, and after freeing the Angel and in turn being taken by Azrael to the Tree of Knowledge on Eden, which the Angel had secreted away, War learns about the entirety of the plot against both himself and humanity, learning of the plan to destroy the seals as well as the Council's knowledge of that fact, and even their plan to have the Watcher kill him once it was all said and done.
He also learned that the Destroyer was in fact Abaddon, who, in an ironic twist, had joined the forces of Hell after his failed attempt to kill them all, as he knew that both Heaven and the Council would see him tried and executed for his crimes if he turned himself in. Additionally, Abaddon had hopped himself up on the power of the Well of Souls, the engine that allows the reincarnation cycle of the Darksiders verse to function. meaning he was virtually immune to harm. To that end, War enlisted the aid of Ulthane, who he'd met along the way, to reforge the Armageddon blade, the weapon they'd used to destroy the seals in the first place, and which had been destroyed in turn to hide the evidence in the aftermath, as it was the only known weapon capable of harming Abaddon despite his Well of Souls power-up. While collecting the pieces, War dueled Uriel, who had by the time of the game become the second in command of Abaddon's Angel Legion, and since his presumed death had become the head of the Legion. She had no knowledge of Abaddon's betrayal and had actively hunted War throughout the course of the game, determined to avenge her fallen leader. This was not their first duel, but was to be their last, with Uriel demanding combat in Nex Sacramentum, a rite that ended only in the death of one combatant over the other. War won, sparing her life and telling her the truth about Abaddon and reminding her that the Nex Sacramentum was still in effect. Both the Angels and War eventually launched separate attacks on Abaddon afterward, with War arriving after the Angels had been routed. War defeated Abaddon, who had kept the seventh seal on him, and, as his Tree of Knowledge vision had foretold, was betrayed by the Watcher, who revealed what War already knew in a full-on villain monologue. Unable to defeat the Watcher due to his chains, War was slain, for the third time, by Uriel using the Armageddon blade, completing the Nex Sacramentum ritual. She then attacked the Watcher, as by this point she'd recognized that War was a creature of honor worthy of respect, and she'd borne witness to the Watcher's admitted treachery. She broke the seventh seal in the process, returning War to life, and, his leash broken by his death, he easily squished the Watcher. War and Uriel exchanged words of respect after that, leading to arguably the most awesome line in the entire series.
You will be hunted. The White City for certain. The Council, and there will be others. You would wage this war alone?
No. Not alone.
And that's basically War, youngest horseman of the Charred Council. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, do like all of these lovely people, and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.